Man, so Jerome Powell just got done with his 2-day testifying at Congress. He was speaking about his monetary policy, and it was fair to say he got a major grilling from many of the members. Now, in this video, we're going to break down a summary of exactly what were the points that were mentioned, but more importantly, how this affects crypto over the medium to slightly longer term. We're going to cover this off in this video in detail. Smash on the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. As always, guys, this video is brought to you by BITGET. If you're looking for a crypto exchange, something a bit more innovative with good fees, speedy transactions, a lot of different tokens, BitGet are creating a lot of noise. So I've started using BitGet. They've got a bunch of copy trading as well. Links in description. Get yourself signed up and you get 10% cash back on whatever you deposit straight away, capped at, I think it was 250 USDT. So get yourself set up on BitGet if you're not set up there. Absolute no-brainer. But today, what do we want to talk about? We want to talk about Jerome Powell, but first let's take a quick look at the markets. We've got the Dow Jones flat, you've got S&P flat, NASDAQ up 0.5, but basically it was a bit of a kind of a seesaw day. The market tried to open up green. Jerome Powell speaking kind of knocked it back down to flat, but it didn't really devastate markets hugely. If we look at Bitcoin, it was up as much as 3 to 4% today, now up 1%, and you can see the head and shoulders pattern has now become invalidated. You saw this curling over before the neckline, which means the head and shoulders pattern did not materialize, okay? So now we're looking for this to go test back at the 20,000 level, test the bottom of the right shoulder, and potentially even start testing the 17,500 level sooner rather than later. Again, if you've not watched my Bitcoin video, go watch my first video I posted today about Bitcoin to go and understand where I'm at from a technical, on-chain, and macro viewpoint. But in this video, we're going to be talking about Jerome Powell, because Jerome Powell testified and he's leaving me feeling the same way. It backs up my conviction that there is still more pain ahead, and that those moon boys who are telling you we're going to be going back to 100k Bitcoin by the end of the year may have something coming their way, right? Maybe we need to reevaluate and remind ourselves that we're not out of the mud just yet. So let's take a recap. So the first thing Jerome Powell made very, very clear is his commitment to reining in inflation is unconditional. In other words, like he said many, many times, he'll do whatever it takes, even if that therefore means running us into a recession. He says the US economy is strong and it's well recovered. He says they're using their tools to affect the demand. He also said that the US inflation is a consequence of very strong demand. I mean, he didn't want to mention that it was due to printing, but more on that a little bit later. You're not going to want to miss the clip I'm going to play to you guys in a few minutes. He says, in hindsight, the Fed underestimated inflation. We know that. He carried on this rhetoric in 2021 that this was transitory and it will come down. And this was one of the first major mistakes that the Fed made last year, right? They were continuing to print money well into the inflation when it was clear and obvious to you and I that inflation was rampant and that really the reining in had to start. He was still printing into there, right? It was only a couple of months ago that the printing has stopped and we've now entered a bit of a quantitative tightening approach. So that was the other thing. And then he covered off the fact that recession is indeed a possibility. So he continued to mention that he's going to try for a soft landing, right? Still trying for this soft landing where we don't have to go into a recession. But he says this has become significantly more challenging with the events of the past few months, particularly the war, which is driving gas prices up. We don't think that a recession is inevitable. Okay, so he's saying he don't think it's inevitable. He's not quite admitting that, but he does think it's a possibility. Now, we got to understand the Fed are always a step behind, right? And if you listen to economists, if you listen to people in the markets, they pretty much think recession is inevitable. Maybe we're already in the official recession, i.e. this quarter could possibly be negative, and therefore 2 consecutive negative quarters gives you your official recession. The question more for economists and investors, they already think we're in a recession. They're more thinking, how deep is this recession going to be? Could it be close to a recession / really, really deep recession? Because it just does not feel normal at this stage. So that was the key bit to cover off there. Jerome Powell also touched upon central banking digital currencies briefly. He says this is something we need to explore as a country, and they spoke briefly about stable coins as well and the need for regulation. We know this is an ongoing topic, but it's clear that still they're not quite in a position to do anything about it. They're still in their learning phase, let alone actually building something and then giving it as an alternative or some sort of regulatory framework. Okay, so let's just play you a couple of interesting segments which pretty much came out from the...
Given how inflation has escalated over the past 18 months, Would you say that the war in Ukraine is the primary driver of inflation in America?
No, inflation was high before, certainly before the war in Ukraine broke out.
So as you can see, Jerome Powell had no way out of that, right? He had to admit that inflation was there well before the war between Russia and Ukraine. This was here in 2021, and there's no getting around that. And that's directly contradictory to obviously the rhetoric we're seeing from Biden. Now, the other interesting piece was this, and the reason I'm going to play you this is going to be very, very clear. But I want you to watch this. I know it's a couple of minutes, about 3 minutes here, but let's just watch this because it's really going to shift your thinking in terms of what is going on with crypto and why do we think we're going to recover anytime soon. Just have a listen.
Mess here. Okay, inflation is hitting my people so hard they're coughing up bones. I don't care what the inflation is in other parts of the country, of the world. I'm sorry they're having inflation in other parts of the world, but them in misery doesn't make my people feel better. They're still miserable. Inflation is hitting people so hard, they're coughing up bones. It's the highest in 40 years. Our national debt is greater than our national output. Crime's up. The border's open. Respect for institutions is way down. And 70% of the American people think we're headed in the wrong direction. Now, we got a hell of a mess. And right now, you're the most powerful man in the United States. Maybe in the world. We've got to get, President Biden, I don't blame him. I understand politics. He keeps saying, well, your 401k has crashed and gas has gone from $2 to $5 a gallon because the economy's so good. And the American people know that's not true. Now, other than relieving regulatory burden, let me put it in the form of a question. What if the United States Congress said, look, we've got a budget. We're going to freeze spending. We're going to stop injecting more money into the economy. We're going to freeze spending until Powell can get control on the demand side. Would that help?
You know, I feel like giving you advice on what to do when
I'm asking
we're not
for
getting
it. I welcome it.
We're not getting our own job done. I feel like maybe a better thing to do would be for us to get our house in order and do the job you've assigned us.
Well, let me put it another way. Let's suppose, forget about Congress. Let's suppose that every governor in every state and every legislature in every state got together tomorrow and said, I know it's not likely to happen, and said, we are going to freeze our budgets. We're not going to spend a penny more than's already budgeted. Would that help?
Would it help?
Sir?
Would it help with?
Would it help reduce inflation?
It would depend on it. Might, but I mean, it would take. Again, I'm giving you. I'm scoring fiscal policy.
Well, I understand
really
you're being careful, but Mr. Chairman, the United States Congress, in addition to its regular budget, has spent $7 trillion. I'm not saying all of it was unnecessary. On top of that, the Fed's increased its balance sheet from $1.5 trillion to $9 trillion. $9 trillion. I know you're cutting it back, but we've injected all of this money into the economy, and then people go, well, we have inflation. Duh. Give me some help here. Tell me what we can do.
I'm really focused on what we can do, which is shrink our balance sheet and raise interest rates and get supply and demand back into alignment and get inflation back down to.
There you have it, guys. Now, I'm not sure what you guys took away from that, but the biggest thing I took away from this was that we are not, I repeat, we are not in a position where we can start to think about a crazy recovery. Look here, inflation's at 8.6%. Let's just move me out the way so you guys can see this. Let's just show you this chart one more time. 40-year highs of 8.6%. If we come on over to the Fed's balance sheet, sitting here just under 9 trillion. This is what they need to reduce down with their quantitative tightening. We have only just started. We are still in the early innings of being in a difficult situation. We had our time of accommodative printing. Now we enter a period where things start to become tricky. And for people to think that's just going to be over in a couple of months and we're going to run back up to all-time highs on crypto, that is the reality check we need, because I'm preparing for a more longer sustained sideways period to potentially slightly downturn as well. Because the rhetoric you hear, the messages you hear from listening to the Congress meeting were rightly so that people are in hardship out there. So that we're not in a position where everybody's happy with what Jerome Powell is doing. He's got work to do. He's admitted that himself. Did he look like somebody who was on top of everything and inflation is coming down? No. He's admitting his hands are up. I've got it wrong. I'm messing up. We're not doing our job. We need to do better. We've got a job to do. Look at the words he's using. He needs to come out. He needs to come out aggressively. He needs that reading to come down month on month continuously before we can have any hope here of returning back to all-time highs on the stock market or crypto. So take a heed of warning. Look at the people who you're watching, the content that you're watching. Those who are promising you that crypto is going to run up to an all-time high in the next couple of weeks or months, you need to take them out of the content you're watching, quite frankly, because the reality is there's more pain ahead. We need to be prepared for that. We need to be pragmatic. If we can get some sort of relief rally, great, we'll take it. But the reality is, the longer-term look is we're heading into this recession, if not in one right now. We need to navigate this, work sideways before worrying about a long-term direction back to all-time highs. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash up the like button and subscribe. Do check out BITGET, links in the description. Get yourself 10% cash back when you deposit. Thanks for watching this video, guys. Go watch this one, and I'll see you in the next one.